Hello and welcome to Crochet Cinema, Hooked on Movies. I am your host, Allie, also known as Something Crochet, and today we're going to be making this Ghostface banner that you see behind me while discussing one of the most iconic horror movies of all time, Scream. Released in 1996 and directed by Wes Craven, Scream featured actors like Neve Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, David Arquette, Matthew Lillard, Courtney Cox, Jamie Kennedy, Rose McGowan, and most famously Drew Barrymore. The film made $173 million, spawned a bunch of sequels, and breathed new life into a genre that was floundering after too many corny, repetitive, boring slashers from the 80s and 90s. So let's get into our tutorial. Before we get started, I just want to have a quick disclaimer. While this is a beginner-friendly tutorial, I'm not really going to be going over the basics. I'm going to assume you know how to hold your hook, how to hold your yarn, chain, and half double crochet. But if you know all that stuff, all you really need to know is how to half double crochet. This is the tutorial for you. So let's get started. Let's start by going over what you'll need. We're going to start with some black yarn, white yarn, light gray yarn, dark gray yarn, and then a background color. As you can see here, I chose pink, but you can choose any color you want. And then you'll need a yarn needle, scissors, which aren't pictured here. I couldn't find mine while I was recording this, but I know you know what scissors look like. And then a size, I'm using a 6mm hook because that's the size of the yarn I'm using, but you can use any size hook, any size yarn, as long as they go together. So now that we have all of our stuff, we are ready to get started. The graph is 31 stitches long, so we're going to start with a chain of 31. So we do our slip knot, and then chain 31. Like I said, this isn't going to be like a full in-depth like beginner tutorial. I'm assuming you know how to chain, you know how to slip knot, you know how to half double crochet. So here we have our chain that is 31 long, 31 plus 1 because we're half double crocheting. From here, you're going to go into the second chain from the hook with a half double crochet. And a half double crochet is just yarn over into the loop, yarn over, pull through one, yarn over, pull through all three. So if you didn't get that, it's yarn over into the chain, yarn over, pull through one, yarn over, pull through all three. You're just going to do that all the way down. Simple half double crochets. Again, if you don't know how to do that, there's plenty of tutorials. I'm not going to spend all that time teaching you how to half double crochet. Here I am right at the end of our first base layer. This is not on the graph. This is just a base because as you can see in the first row of the graph, there's a color switch, and I don't like to color switch on just a chain. So here is what you should have so far. Just a simple 31 half double crochets. So now we're ready to start looking at our graph, and I'm going to teach you how to read it. So the most important thing is every square on the graph is a stitch. So what that means is each square is a half double crochet. It's once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. And the second most important thing to remember is that every row, you don't read from right to left every row. So you start row 1, right to left, but when you go row 2, you're going to go left to right. And I'll show you how that looks on the actual piece. So let's get started with row 1 here. We've already chained 1 and turned. If you haven't already, do that really quick. On the graph, you'll see that the first 3 stitches are black. I'm not going to finish the third one because we're going to do a color switch. You're going to drop your black yarn, pick up your dark gray yarn because that's what the color of the next square is, and you're going to finish that half double crochet with the dark gray yarn. If I can get it through there. Make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want it falling off your hook. You don't want it coming loose. So there is 2 dark gray stitches. So you're going to do 1, and then instead of finishing the second one, you're going to drop the dark gray yarn, pick up the black, and you're going to finish that half double crochet with the black yarn. And that's all color changes are basically. The stitch before the color change, you're going to finish that with the color you're changing to, and then you just keep going. So we'll have another color change here. I'm going to do the last stitch before the color change. I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to put the black yarn down, pick up the dark gray yarn, and finish that half double crochet. And then I'm going to do our dark gray stitch, There's only one, so I put the yarn down, don't finish it with the black yarn, and that's how you do a color switch. One important thing to remember is that you always want to drop your yarn on the same side. That will be your back side. So sometimes the back side will be forward, sometimes it won't be, but you always want to make sure that when you're dropping the yarn, it goes to the back side. So we have just finished row 1 on the chart, and here is what it looks like. You'll see we have our color switches. Our gray yarn is still attached, our black yarn is both attached. Neither one, we don't cut either one while we're going. Your yarn should stay attached the whole time. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and then we are going to go back down until we get to another color change, which on this side is not for a little bit, so I'm going to go back down until we get to the next color change. So we are on the last stitch before the color switch here, and we're going to start this last stitch with black. We're not going to finish with black because we're switching color, so you're going to drop your black on the same side. You've been dropping it, pick up your gray, and then finish the half double crochet with the gray. You're going to do your gray stitch, drop the gray, pick up the black, finish the half double crochet, then you're going to do your black stitches, and then in your last, before your color, you're switching colors next, so you're going to not finish with the black. You're going to pick up the gray to finish that half double crochet. Do your gray stitches. And then when you're going to switch back to black, you're not finishing that gray stitch. Drop the gray, pick up the black, finish the half double crochet with the black, and then go all the way to the end. So here is what we have after row 2. This is the back side of the piece, so this is where all your yarn is going to be. And then here's the front side of the piece. This will be the side that you look at. So those first 2 rows were just to go over the basics of color switching. Because there wasn't much switching going on in those 2 rows, I'm going to come back when I'm further in the piece, about halfway done, to do another couple of rows so I can really show you how you're going to switch colors.
Scream follows a group of old-looking high schoolers as they're tormented and picked off one by one by a killer in the iconic Ghostface mask. The film's opening is probably its most recognizable scene as we follow Drew Barrymore, who's playing Casey Becker, as she burns her Jiffy Pop and answers her home phone one too many times. Our first victim of the film is Casey's boyfriend Steve, and Casey follows quickly after an intense game of cat and mouse. News of the couple's death spreads quickly around the high school as the school is swarmed with reporters who want insight into the grisly murder of 2 teenagers. So it's at the school where we meet our main cast that consists of Sydney, Billy, Tatum, Stu, Randy, the cop Dewey, and the reporter Gail. And Sydney is our final girl. She's the main character. She's very upset by the whole situation, given that her mother was just murdered less than a year prior. We get our next Ghostface sighting in Sydney's home as she is attacked, but she manages to email 911, which was very 90s, scaring the killer away. Her boyfriend Billy shows up with very sus timing and is arrested by the police because he has a cellular telephone which connects him to the killer. Billy's arrested and Sydney is taken to Tatum's house by Tatum's brother Dewey. Our next Ghostface sighting occurs in the school's bathroom. He tries to kill Sydney, but she manages to escape once again, and because of this, they decide to suspend school, and later, the principal is killed by Ghostface. Now, with school suspended, Stu makes a totally rational, normal decision when there's a serial killer on the loose and decides to host a party that night. At this party, Tatum is attacked in the garage and is killed when she tries to escape through an unfortunately sized doggy door, and Billy is next when he is stabbed by Ghostface. Randy is nearly killed, and Gail's cameraman is not so lucky as he gets murdered by Ghostface, but Sydney makes it back to the house where Stu and Randy both accuse each other of being the killers. Billy turns out he survived, he comes downstairs, and it's time for our killer revealed sequence. So not only do Billy and Stu turn out to be the killers who have been working together this whole time, but it's also revealed that they killed Sydney's mom over just a year ago. and framed the man who is in jail for doing it. The two plan on framing Sydney's dad, who they kidnapped earlier in the film, for the whole thing, and take turns stabbing each other to make it look even more realistic, but Gail and Sydney manage to fight back against the duo. Stu meets his end when a massive, very 90s looking TV is pushed onto his head, electrocuting him, and Billy is ultimately shot by Sydney. With the killers dealt with, Gail signs us out, and our survivors left are Sydney, Gail, Dewey, and Randy.
So I'm about halfway done the project so far. I've gotten to row 24. This has taken me just under 2 hours to do, and this is what the front looks like, and then I'll show you what the back looks like. So you see all my yarns being carried, it's all on the same side. And now that we're halfway done, I will show you how to do a couple more intense rows. So we'll do 25 and 26 together. So we're going to start here on row 25. It's a bit more intense than the first 2 rows I showed you, so hopefully this will clear up the color switching a little bit more. But starting on row 25, we're going to start reading right to left. So we'll start with 2 pink stitches. You're not going to finish the second one because we're switching to black to do our 1 black stitch. So you're going to drop the pink, pull through with the black, start your 1 black stitch. Because you're only doing 1, you're going to pick up the next color and switch. So that's dark gray. Pull through with dark gray, 1 dark gray, drop the dark gray. You're going to pick up the black again and pull through. And then it calls for 3 black stitches. Remember, don't finish the last one because we're switching colors, so that we can do 2 white stitches next. Pull through with the white. We're not going to finish that one because we're switching to black now for 4 black stitches. So on our 4th one, we're not going to finish because we're switching back to white. So you're going to pick up the white from the back again, finish the stitch with the white, and then it's 2 white stitches. And remember, you're reading on odd number rows, you're reading from right to left, even numbers left to right. Drop the white. We have 2 black stitches after that, so I'm going to pick up the black again. So we have 1 white stitch, because it's only 1 we're not finishing. Drop it to the back, find your light gray yarn, pick it up, pull through, and then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 light grays. On the 5th one, we're not going to finish because we're going back to black. So drop your light gray, pick up black. And I believe on this piece, for some of the colors for the light gray and the dark gray, I have the yarn running from both ends of the skein so that it's not as tangled, so that I don't have those really long pieces of yarn stretching across the back. But you can do that. Just remember, if you're going to only work the yarn from one end, to leave a little bit of slack on that yarn so your piece isn't pulled very tight. So let's do our 4 black stitches. Don't finish the 4th because we have to switch back to pink to finish out this row. And we're going to do our last 4 stitches in pink. So that was row 25. That was a lot of color switching, so I really hope that cleared it up for you and that it'll make that you understand how to do color switching now. I'm going to do 1 more row. We'll do row 26 together to make sure that you really get it. But yeah, that's how you switch colors in a more intense row like that. Alright, let's start row 26. Because we're on an even number row, we're going to read the graph from left to right. So after we've chained one and turned our work, we're going to be working on the back side of the piece now. Row 26 starts with 4 pink stitches. And just like we've been doing, I'm not going to finish that 4th one because we're going to switch to black according to the graph. You can see my yarn's a mess right here. I just deal with it. I like to cut it every once in a while. But if you use bobbins, it'll be a lot easier. So now we're going to do our 4 black stitches. After that 4 black, we're going to do 1 light gray. And because it's only one, we're not going to finish it. We're going to pull it through with the next color, which is white. And we're going to do 3 white stitches. Don't finish the 3rd one. We're going to go back to light gray. And you can see that as I'm working on the back side, you see how I don't cut off the yarn when I use it. I just pull it. I don't go over the yarn, but I still keep it connected. So after our 2nd light gray, we're going to go back to white and do 4 white stitches. On our 4th one, we're going to pick up the black yarn, if I can get it untangled. Okay, we're going to do 4 black stitches. And this is really how you read any chart, so this is how I do all of my graph crochet. The most important thing to remember is right to left for odd numbers or left to right for even. You can do it the other way, you just have to keep it consistent or else your graph won't look right. Alright, after our 4 blacks, we have 1 white. We're going to pick the black back up, go on to our next 4 black stitches. On our 4th one, we're not going to finish. We're going to pick up our dark gray, finish the stitch with dark gray, then do our dark gray stitch. Only 1. We're going to switch back to black, do our last black stitch of the row, and before switching back to pink, and doing our 2 pink stitches to finish row 26. I chose to do the beginning rows just so you know how to start, and I chose to do 2 rows in the middle so you really see what it's like in the thick of it. So here's what the back of it looks like. You can see my yarn is a total mess, but you can also see that I am carrying my yarn. I'm not crocheting over it. I just hang it on the back because you're not really going to look at that side. And then this is what the front looks like. So you're just going to keep doing the same thing, reading the graph. Every square is a stitch. When you need to switch colors, you stop the stitch before and finish the stitch with your new color, and then you go into that stitch, do your new color, and then until you need to switch again. So yeah, I hope that that was clear enough, and you can watch this part back a few times if you're still confused on how to switch colors or how to read the graph. If you need any help, you can always reach out to me on Instagram. That's where I'm most likely to respond. And yeah, you can just keep going with the piece. And when you get to row 45, don't tie off. Next up, I will show you how to add a dowel to our banner.
At the time of Scream's release, the horror genre had taken a bit of a hit and wasn't as doing as well as it had during the early 70s and late 80s. Films like Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, which had been huge successes, had spawned a bunch of subpar, not very good sequels. The genre was beginning to feel a bit stale and predictable and uninteresting. And then Scream entered the scene and brought something totally new to the genre. The film referenced other popular horror movies, leaned into and dissected common horror movie tropes and cliches, and it subverted audience expectations of what a horror movie should be.
Congratulations, you've now finished your Ghostface Banner and you know how to read graph crochet. Here's how mine turned out. I'm super happy with the results. And there's just 2 more steps. One is not mandatory, but I am gonna have to weave in all these ends. And let's go over the optional step next, which is adding a dowel. Now this is just a 12-inch wooden dowel. You can find them at your local craft store. And I'm going to add it to the banner like these ones you see here. I've done this skull, and then I did this heart, flaming heart one. Both of these have the dowel, and again, it's totally optional. I just like the way it looks, so we're gonna add that next. So I already have mine started a little bit here, as you can see. It's easier to show you once I already have it attached a little bit, but it's pretty simple. You're just gonna half double crochet around the dowel. So you'll see me yarn over, and then I go under the dowel and into the stitch. And this will make it so that the stitch is like surrounding the dowel and the dowel is inside of the banner. Again, you just yarn over, you go under the dowel and into the stitch so that the stitch goes around the dowel. So you just do that all the way down. It's a little bit finicky when you first get started, but you'll get the hang of it. And you just want to make sure that the dowel, you move the stitches down the dowel as you go so that it'll be even at the ends. And you can always move the dowel more at the ends if it's not even. But yeah, I'm just going to go to the end of the dowel now, and then I will show you what we're going to do next to add the thing that you hang it from. So I've got just a few more stitches here to finish before my dowel is totally incorporated into the banner. Now once I'm done that, I'm not going to tie off and cut because we need to do a chain so that we can have the little thing that your banner is actually going to hang from. And the length of your chain can depend. Because this is a longer banner, I'm going to make the chain a bit shorter so that it doesn't hang down that low. I ended up doing 31 chains, which is the length of the banner itself. So I just chain up 31. And once we've chained up 31, you're going to go to the other end of the dowel into the first stitch and just slip stitch that chain so that you have a little triangle to hang your banner from. Alright, so our chain is attached. Now we can cut off and tie off because we are done. So here's what it looks like with the dowel and the little chain to hang it from. And now we only have one last step. Unfortunately, it is the most tedious step, and that is weaving in all these wonderful ends. So to weave in your ends, you're going to take your yarn needle and you basically just go through the stitches. You want your needle to always come out on the back side. You want to weave your ends in onto the back side. So I go through about 2 or 3, pull the yarn through, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the needle in one more time. I'm going to take the yarn that I just pulled through and I'm going to separate the fibers in half. I have 2 sets of the smaller yarn fibers. And I'm going to take half of that and pull it through that last stitch with the needle. And once it's pulled through, I just tie them together a couple times, do like 3 or 4 knots just to make sure it's super secure. And then I will cut off the ends. And I just do it this way because I think it keeps it very secure and I don't have to worry about any of them coming loose. It does take a little bit longer, but I think it's worth it in the end.
This was my first time watching the film, even though it's literally been out my entire life, and I have seen it referenced before, and I even had who the killers were spoiled for me at some point, so that did take away from some of the mystery of the film, but it was overall an enjoyable watch. The standouts for me were definitely the opening scene. It was exciting, it was scary, and Drew Barrymore did an amazing job. My other standout of the film would definitely have to be Matthew Lillard's performance as Stu. He stood out, he stole scenes, I think he did a great job as the character. For things that I didn't like that much, some of the meta commentary and the references felt a little bit on the nose, and it was like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's a horror movie referencing other movies. Yeah, okay, whatever. And some of the acting could be a little bit corny, a little cheesy at points, and it was a little eye-rolling, but it didn't detract too much from the overall watching experience. So I'm gonna give Scream a 3.5 cellular telephones out of 5. And that is going to be it for our first episode of Crochet Cinema. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. If you do end up making the Ghostface banner, make sure that you tag me on Instagram or TikTok. I would love to see them. You can tag me at smthcrochet, that's SMTH crochet. And if you aren't already, make sure you're also following me on TikTok and Instagram. That's where you'll be able to see what I'm working on, any new projects coming up, and that's where I will post sneak peeks of the next episode of Crochet Cinema. Since I already know what I'm doing for the next episode though, I can do a little sneak peek now. Next episode will be Over the Garden Wall theme, and we'll be making this Over the Garden Wall vest. I've been working on and off on this project for about a year, so the next episode is going to be a little different in that I'm not making the project as I'm going along. It's just going to be more of an explanatory video, but still this has been a long-awaited video that I've wanted to make, and now I finally have a way to do so. So again, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next upload, and I will see you then in the next episode of Crochet Cinema.